Hello everyone, I'm holding a printer inkjet cartridge that cost €35 and only contains 5 milliliters of ink, which makes the liquid in this cartridge one of the most expensive in the world. But this is determined only by the greed of the printer manufacturers, not by any particular feature of these ordinary inks based on water, alcohol, and a mixture of pigments. On the other hand, there are modern ionic liquids, the cost of which can reach over €2,000 per liter. So why are these so expensive? And how can we use them to make new clothes out of old ones? Well, let's figure it out. By the way, I noticed that the more different sciences I study, the more I understand how interconnected they are. Chemistry and mathematics, physics and biology, computer science and analysis. All these are parts of one big puzzle called science. And the more of these parts you have, the easier it'll be for you to understand the world around us. Therefore, if you love science as much as I love it, then I recommend the Brilliant Interactive platform. It's a fun and smart game with thousands of educational lessons in math, data science, and computer science. New lessons are added every month, and training is carried out in the format of exciting games with different levels of difficulty. There's so much to be found here: logic, data science, computer science, and programming, artificial intelligence, neural networks, and much more. Study the materials at your own pace, and if things get difficult, you can always use helpful tips. And there are lessons here that'll be useful not only in science, but also in life. For example, in the How Technology Works course, you can learn what makes your password truly secure, and how algorithms understand what content you like. And now is the time to try Brilliant, because it's absolutely free for 30 days. What's more, if you follow my link in the description, you'll receive an exclusive 20% discount for the entire annual subscription period. Explore science with Brilliant. Before talking about unusual ionic liquids, let's remember what substances liquid under normal conditions can be found in ordinary life. Obviously, the simplest one is water, which in its pure form is a transparent, non-flammable liquid that doesn't conduct electricity. This can be easily tested by placing 2 electrodes in a beaker of distilled water with a light bulb connected to them. Since pure distilled water doesn't conduct electricity, the light bulb doesn't light up yet. But as soon as you add several pinches of regular salt to the beaker, the bulb lights up, which indicates that the solution is conducting electricity. The reason for this is the formation of ions in the solution, which carry the charge from one electrode to the other. Other liquids that can be found in common use, such as oil or gasoline, also don't conduct current, as they don't have any ions. On the contrary, they're excellent dielectrics. For example, transformer oil is widely used in transformers as a coolant. Usually ordinary liquids, whether it's water or different solvents, also have various disadvantages. Water evaporates too easily, and most solvents or oils burn quite well. Besides, they may be toxic. For example, lithium-ion batteries burn just because of the presence of flammable solvents in them. Back in the 40s of the 20th century, scientists decided to invent another type of liquid that would be devoid of all the above-mentioned disadvantages. The so-called ionic liquids were developed. To make the nature of these liquids clearer, let's pour ordinary table salt, or sodium chloride, into a quartz crucible. The salt itself doesn't conduct electricity and is not fluid. But if you melt it, things get much more interesting. When its temperature reaches 1,473 degrees Fahrenheit, table salt turns into not a simple liquid, but an ionic one. In other words, at high temperature, the sodium and chlorine ions, which were previously in close contact in the crystal lattice, can separate from each other and move freely, forming the above-mentioned ionic liquid. Even though this liquid conducts electricity and doesn't burn or vaporize, it does have another problem. It's too hot to be used in any device. Watch this. As soon as I turn off the burner, after about 30 seconds, the salt immediately starts to solidify and form crystals. As for me, it's quite a spectacular process. Over the last 80 years, scientists have invented ionic liquids with a lower melting point than ordinary salt. For example, It's possible to make an ionic liquid yourself under normal conditions. To do this, you need to take an ordinary salt, like cobalt chloride, that is, a compound of cobalt and chlorine. Mix it with so-called choline chloride, which is known as vitamin B4. These two components will form a complex compound, the melting point of which may be many times lower than that of the original substances. This is how ionic liquids are obtained. In other words, ionic liquid is a salt, the melting point of which is below 212 degrees Fahrenheit, but often these salts are liquid even at room temperature. If we make an analogy with alloys, ionic liquids are akin to eutectic solutions, for example, formed by the fusion of indium and gallium. The melting point of these two metals is above room temperature, but rubbing them against each other results in a eutectic alloy with a melting point lower than that of the original metals. Sure, it's all interesting, but where are these ionic liquids used? And how much do they cost? To answer that, I went to Tallinn University of Technology, where my good friend Ilya works with ionic liquids in the Department of Polymer Chemistry. Good afternoon. My name is Ilya Krasnov. I'm a senior researcher at Tallinn University of Technology, Laboratory of Biopolymer Minerals. One of the areas, the main area of our work, is the processing of cellulose in ionic liquids. This is currently one of the most high-tech and most expensive chemical substances used in industry and science. Ionic liquids are salts that are liquid at room temperature, as opposed to ordinary salts. Today, we're going to experiment with textiles. Here's an old sweater. There's a huge amount of textile waste in the world that needs to be recycled somehow. They're no longer suitable for wearing or even using as rags, and there's no place to burn them. According to estimates, up to 100 million tons of unnecessary clothing is accumulated every year. By volume, it's about 140 pyramids of Giza. Yeah, that's a whole city made of clothes. And if you think that this clothing can be directed to the poor, it's not that easy. Someone has to pay for the transportation and sorting. No one would do it for free. That's why scientists are now developing new methods of waste textiles recycling. In a previous video, Ilya showed us another method of recycling old clothes. We mixed them with plastic, getting unusual materials and giving the cotton fiber a new life, thus reducing the amount of waste. Moreover, the resulting material was even stronger than ordinary plastic. But not all worn-out clothes can be recycled like that, as some garments are made up of different types of materials. For example, pants or socks may contain up to 3 types of fabrics, like cotton, elastane, and polyamide. It's a real challenge to recycle these clothes using the above-mentioned method, as some fabrics mix with plastics, but others don't. So, we have to separate all types of fabrics from each other without generating more toxic waste. So these socks need to be dissolved somehow, separating, let's say, cotton from elastane. And of course, this process has to be eco-friendly. There are several ways to do this, for example, separating fabrics in a solvent. Still, socks don't dissolve in water, oil, or gas. In other words, we need some special substance. One of the oldest cotton or cellulose solvents is a complex compound of copper and ammonia, which can be easily obtained by mixing basic copper carbonate with ammonia. The reaction produces a dark blue liquid, copper amine complex, which can easily dissolve shredded white socks made of cotton and elastane. Cotton perfectly dissolves in copper amine complex, whereas elastane is practically insoluble. It can be separated by filtration, and the obtained solution would be injected into a sulfuric acid solution with a syringe. As a result, the sock turns into pure viscose, or artificial silk, which can be used to make high-quality and durable clothing. The only problem is that recycling clothes with a rather toxic copper amine complex produces even more chemical waste, like sulfuric acid or copper sulfate. That's why scientists are now trying to dissolve old clothes in ionic liquids, which are both non-toxic and easy to recycle. Since research on ionic liquids and their properties started relatively recently, these substances are still pretty expensive. For example, some ionic liquids in this laboratory cost more than the average salary in Estonia. This is the production of our Finnish colleagues. This bottle costs 2,000 euros. That price is actually quite reasonable, since these substances are excellent cellulose solvents that are absolutely harmless to nature. One of the most frequently used ionic liquids in this lab is EMIM acetate, consisting of a salt acetate acid and a rather unusual organic ion, 1-ethylimidazolium. Because of the complex composition, the cost of this substance is huge, about €400 per liter. That's not all. Because ionic liquids are basically liquid salts, they easily absorb moisture from the air. So to make sure these substances keep their quality, they need to be stored in special boxes in a pure, dry nitrogen environment. Alright, I think it's time to show you how to recycle old clothes with the help of these ionic liquids. To do this, Ilya poured a small amount of EMIM acetate into a small beaker. In order to achieve a better dissolution of old clothes in this liquid, and to prevent the resulting solution from thickening, we added another good solvent, dimexide, to the beaker. Then, we take a worn-out shirt made of cotton and elastane and weigh about 1 gram of this fabric on a scale. The only thing left to do is to dissolve it in 10 milliliters of the ionic liquid mixture for a few hours, resulting in a 10% solution of cellulose in the EMIM acetate environment. It's interesting that the fabric itself is gray, but the solution is deep blue. Within 3 hours, the solution became too viscous, and it would be difficult to separate the pure cellulose from it in any way. To reduce the viscosity, we added some more ionic liquid with dimexide to the beaker. Then, the solution becomes more fluid. Looking at the result under a microscope, you can see all the cotton from the old t-shirt dissolved in the solution, leaving these twisted spirals of elastane that don't dissolve in the ionic liquid. To separate elastane from dissolved cotton, we decided to filter the ionic liquid through an ordinary syringe with a synthetic absorbent cotton filter. In the meantime, Ilya squeezes the contents of the syringe into the water, thus forming nice viscose threads. The thing is, the ionic liquid instantly dissolves in water, while the cellulose itself, or dissolved cotton, precipitates in the form of unusual fibers. In addition to these cellulose noodles, t-shirts dissolved in ionic liquid can be used for the production of real microfiber. To do this, we proceeded to a special setup where cellulose microfibers are obtained under the influence of high voltage. To start, Ilya places a syringe with the remains of cellulose dissolved in the ionic liquid into the machine, and collects an electrode to the syringe needle. The second electrode is a metal mesh in this tub of water. Applying a voltage of 10 kilovolts, we create a high potential difference that makes the cellulose solution squeezed out of the syringe atomize and spiral into fine filaments, which are subsequently deposited on the water surface. Similarly to the previous experiment, the ionic liquid dissolves in water, and the resulting cellulose microfibers remain in the form of a fine precipitate. This process is called electrospinning. It allows the production of ultrafine fibers, which are subsequently used in the latest medical research on the creation of artificial skin. The only trouble is the process takes about an hour because our machine is far from industrial. After completing the electrospinning, we decided to filter the resulting microfibers and dry them in the oven, along with the viscose noodles obtained earlier. It takes about 30 minutes to dry everything up, and now we can look at the result under the microscope. Of course, because of the imperfections of our demonstration experiments, the product obtained from the old shirt is not of factory quality, but it still proves that ionic liquids can be used for recycling old clothes and obtaining new material. In ideal conditions, observing all the technologies and nuances, electrospinning can be applied for the production of this kind of superfine fiber with a thickness of about 150 micrometers, which makes it seem weightless. Nowadays, this material is used in the latest medical research, as well as for the production of different goods like pregnancy tests or deep air purification filters. Sounds cool, but how do they recycle the ionic liquid left after dissolving the cellulose? It's actually pretty simple. Ionic liquid residues mixed with the solvents are simply distilled at a special unit, after which they can be reused multiple times. For example, the laboratory where Ilya works has already accumulated enough solutions with ionic liquid for distillation, which still need to be filtered from potential contaminants before distillation. To separate the ionic liquid from dimexide, water, and other substances, the initial mixture is poured into the upper part of the unit, and then turn on the apparatus that heats some kind of pink-colored coolant. It's kind of unusual, as it was originally designed to be extracting substances from cannabis for medical purposes, but it's been modified for scientific applications. Each vessel has a special jacket with circulating hot coolant, which maintains the same temperature for all solutions, thus improving their fluidity and making them evaporate faster. The distillation itself takes place in the middle flask at reduced pressure, in which the heated solution is smeared on the walls of the hot flask with the help of fluoroplastic rollers. This process makes the evaporation much faster and more efficient. After that, the solution is separated into water and alcohol vapors, which are immediately condensed in the lower part of the unit. Interestingly, the refrigerant, in other words, the liquid that cools the surface on which the alcohol and water condense, is the same ethanol, or pure alcohol. Alcohol cools alcohol. Kind of interesting. After the water and alcohol have evaporated from the initial solution, the mixture of ionic liquid and dimexide, which have a higher boiling point, flow to the bottom of the unit and accumulate in the lower heated flask. In theory, they can now either be used again to dissolve old clothes, or they can be separated once again in a fractional distillation unit to obtain the pure ionic liquid, namely EMIM acetate. The advantage of ionic liquids is they don't decompose during distillation and are completely non-toxic, so their distillation is even safer than domestic moonshine distillation. In addition to their ability to dissolve cellulose, ionic liquids have good conductive properties and evaporate very slowly. These properties are ideal for creating extremely efficient supercapacitors, one of which I decided to make myself. To do that, I took a special foil made of passivated aluminum, covered with a thin layer of carbon to increase porosity. Ilya gave me the foil. It was bought from Japan, so it's pretty rare. I cut 2 electrodes from this unusual foil and separated them with a special dielectric, resembling a thin paper. Since the electrodes were very thin, it was a pretty hard task, but still, I coped with it. After that, I had to seal this homemade capacitor with a regular kitchen vacuum sealer. Now I just have to fill it with the electrolyte. In my case, it's the ionic liquid, using a syringe, and then evenly spread it inside. Well, I guess we could try to charge this capacitor with a lithium battery. As you can see, it has enough voltage to light up the red LED. After charging the capacitor, I decided to power this little LED from it, but it didn't light up. After checking the voltage on the capacitor, I found out that its charge is only half a volt and doesn't increase in any way. Maybe we need some different ionic liquid. Maybe not EMIM acetate, but EMIM tetrafluoroborate. It's hard to say. Also, it's possible the properties of the ionic liquid have deteriorated because of the moisture in the air. As far as I understand, the advantage of ionic liquids in capacitors over other electrolytes is the fact that these liquids consist of large ions, which means the charge of the capacitor doesn't drain so quickly. The ions are large and pass through the separator more slowly than ions of, let's say, sodium or chlorine. But still, scientists from our university have already managed to make small and flexible supercapacitors with a capacity that's half a farad. That's half a farad. The great thing about them is that they're flexible and really light. There are 2 electrodes. It's a fairly low-quality production. But still, like everything in science, it's sealed with plasticine. Classic. Science wouldn't have progressed without plasticine. This is actually a plastic electrode. Plastic with conductive fillers and ionic liquid inside. We made a fiber and used it as the electrode. It's made on the surface of an aluminum foil. Is the fiber made of cellulose? No, it's a polyacrylonitrile fiber. Oh, well, I think after watching this video, you've learned more about ionic liquids and the reason why they're so expensive. And if you enjoyed this video, as always, don't forget to give it a like and subscribe to the channel to see many more new and interesting things.